Now, amid the ongoing labor dispute with the government over a new national minimum wage, the National Economic Council has held in Abuja with President Bola Tinubu notably in attendance at the meeting, which is meant only for the Vice President and governors to attend. At the end of the meeting, the council was silent on the new national minimum wage. We'll have that story from State House correspondent Adeswa Omora in a minute. Well, first, Rise Analyst Dr. Sam Amadi joins me now in the studio. Good to see you and thanks for your time. Well, we're still here talking about the national minimum wage, still talking about that meeting which held to the extent that, well, it looks so foggy, details. But what does this say of how we're dealing with state affairs, state matters? Because one would have thought that with how the country was plunged into that very unwanted strike action and the pain it caused Nigerians from all sectors, this would have been on the front plate.
I think generally it's a story that we're not running an efficient government, not just at the federal level, at all levels. And what that means is that the people who have responsibility, statutory ownership of policy making, probably don't get prepared early. And so, I mean, if this was Korea, East Asian, where people what we call state effectiveness, state is effective. Once this problem comes up, all the analytics, all the research, data analysis, all the policy propositions, discussions, so you would see leaders really with a plan. So not just can't and shouldn't and won't, but real analysis that tells them what they can give and not do. And so they'll quickly wrap it up, decide, you know, this is where we're going, and they go there. So, but what we see is that our leadership, our system is not one that is managerial, focused on really solving problems, identifying those problems, pool resources and executive attention to address those problems. So in quick time, this has lingered for months, and each time, whether it's at the level of the FEC, the Federal Executive Council, or now at the NEC, which is a coordinating council of state governors with the Vice President, underwritten by the National Public Planning Commission, you expect more rigor. So by now, they would have they rise up with a decision one way or other because the facts are all up front. But where a lot of politicking and more of, you know, rhetoric and less of real work happens over 3-4 months, and then you keep kicking the can down. And that uncertainty is dangerous because you're dealing with a constituency level too. That, I mean, when Labour feels there's no good faith in this negotiation, they might be justified. Look at when the two-party party submitted the report to the president. How long will it take the president's men to crunch the numbers? How long will it take the governors to come up and say, this is really our best fit, we can't go beyond this? And it'll be very clear.
Well, speaking of which, sorry, I don't mean to butt in here, the governors now, the vibe, you know, that we're getting from the governors doesn't look good. So how do you think Labour and the governors will handle this? Because they came individually, first collectively, to say, look, even what the federal government has proposed, we're not even coming close to it. So it looks like we're far from home.
Yeah, I don't even, on a personal, my own personal sense is that I don't expect an amicable resolution at all. I expect a stalemate. I expect back to conflict for two reasons. One, the governors, really, who have not paid 30,000, not for fiscal challenge as much as for moral commitment, a sense in which they think this matters. I take, for example, NLC accuses Abia State government of not paying, you know, not even paying the 30,000 of owing salaries. The government retorts back that they are doing verification or stories. Now, this is a government that is arguably doing well in infrastructure, and you know, it's talking about a lot of good work. But if it is true, and there's no strong refutation from the government of Abia State. If it's true that they're not paying those salaries and are not paying 30,000, for example, then it speaks to a misplacement of development agenda and a perception problem. So we should be able to unpack two things. I mean, the physical frailty of the federal government and the states are well known. But also, within that frailty, the question is, can they do well? Take, for example, Edo State, a state that I like. People talk about maybe not doing as great infrastructure. But they do well. They started paying, moved to 30, moved to 40. So Edo is not richer arguably than maybe Abia or those who are not paying. From the report to God, a state like Plateau indicated they could go up to 60 or 50 or 70, okay, from the report to God. And some states like Abia, Imo is saying about maybe 35 or 40. So the point is, there is first the problem that we've not agreed on principle, the principle of governance, principle of how do we do labor. We're hearing some quote-unquote palliative interventions are coming out of that meeting, but they don't address the issue of justice. So first, a minimum wage. In 1972, Gowon signed a minimum wage, and today I was in a conference where I was keynote speaker, I was the chairman, we discussed this. Then they understood the minimum wage is a social justice issue. It's a justice issue that people have to be paid reasonable wage, fair wage, considering that they're also contributing to national growth. So it's not often like an inconvenience. The way the governor sees it is, look, we've got a lot of things to do. We've got to take care of our private jets. We've got to take care of our overbloated overheads. And this idea of paying 30,000 to these guys. So first is we misconceive it. This is about fair reward for work. And secondly, it's also about development, that they are investing in giving workers the capacity to consume social goods and therefore maintain their life and therefore also stimulate production. And you are creating a vicious spillover across other sectors. So I think the real problem for me is there an agreement? Is the federal government really morally equipped to nudge states to some degree of good thinking and practice, when the government itself is kind of shackled by their own wrong priority? The budget speaks around the government itself, lacks the federal government, who could use nudging, and some kind of bulletproof to push governors towards more vicious action. Themselves are lacking in good faith, because if your priority is very bad, so you can't tell the governors, look, you guys have to shut down some of these expenses, free money to improve salary.
No, that is good a thing that we're talking about the governors, because in this conversation it looks like the governors are the big ones in the room. Let's quickly go back to Adesua, who was at that meeting, and see what she has for us.
Today's National Economic Council meeting was highly anticipated, primarily due to the contentious issue of a new national minimum wage. The lengthy session saw an unusual appearance by President Bola Tinubu, who is constitutionally not a member of the body. It comes after he promised to consult further with state governors over the pending minimum wage dispute before sending a bill to the National Assembly. There were high hopes that significant decisions will be made regarding the minimum wage, which has been a point of heated debate and negotiations. But at the conclusion of the meeting, there was an unexpected turn of events.
And I also make it a point of notice that there won't be any questions, because we're rather around late for the day.
Journalists were informed they would not be allowed to ask questions, while no mention was made of the minimum wage. However, following the briefing, an official statement was made available by the presidential spokesperson, Ajuri Ngilale. He revealed the president's approval of the immediate rollout of the National Construction and Household Support Program during the meeting. It includes a 10 billion naira allocation for buses and a 50,000 naira uplift grant for 100,000 families per state for the next 3 months. The program also allocates 155 billion naira for the distribution of assorted food items across the country. The initiative aims to boost agricultural productivity and provide economic relief for Nigerians. Key projects under the program include the Sokoto-Badagry Highway and the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. The Sokoto-Badagry Highway is prioritized for its strategic importance, traversing states crucial to Nigeria's agricultural sustainability, according to the statement. Well, it adds that the President emphasized the urgency of boosting food production. Additionally, the Economic Council discussed progress in updating and improving the National Social Register used for direct digital payments to beneficiaries in need.
That process has been strengthened and it now needs speeding and scaling up given the situation in the country as far as the inflation and elevated prices. And the governors agreed that they would accept the verified register, which they themselves have verified down to the ward level.
It also came to light that during the meeting, several committees made submissions, including that of the natural disaster mitigation, crude oil theft, and management, among others.
Today, additional recommendation was also submitted, and the National Economic Council took judicious note of all recommendations, and while implementing the immediate measures, has requested for us to come with a final report that will serve as a permanent solution to the incident of crude oil thefts in Nigeria.
By profiling recommendation on how best we can prepare and respond to 2024 rainy season. It will interest you to know that today the committee have submitted its report with recommendations to the council, and I'm happy to let you know that the council has approved the recommendations, and Mr. President is quite happy about the report, and he has promised to look into the report with its recommendations for immediate implementations.
The country now waits with bated breath to see the outcome of this meeting. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omorwan, Arise News.
Well, many thanks, Adesua. Let's quickly wrap up this conversation with Dr. Sam Amadi. You've heard that. And as foggy as it looks, as evasive as it would seem, there must be some kind of deal that must be given to Labour on behalf of the Nigerian people. So what's the expectation going forward?
First, I mean, these interventions, maybe good interventions for the larger policy interventions to deal with mitigating poverty, mitigating inflation and other, socio-economic impact. But look, minimum wage is not for everybody. Minimum wage is for people who work and who are within that class. So even if government roll out, we've heard about this about this $10 billion naira for CNG buses. Yes, it will mitigate the transport crisis that we're facing, especially for low-income earners and workers. But the minimum wage goes to some people, and so this doesn't kind of take care of that. So I think the government, the governor, the president should be bold, be clear-minded, and say, look, this is how we're going to respond to the evident loss of livelihood for these lower workers. I mean, 30,000, 40,000 in today's economy. As a private person myself, maybe have a staff of less than 5 people, I have to increase salaries more than 4 times since the beginning of the year. In fact, I have to do one yesterday because evident, the same market, whether they are the lawyers, plumbers, they're going to go to the same market. And so I think there is a sense in which the government should be forthright and say, look, yes, we know this constraint of fiscal constraints, but this is really what we'll do. And the problem is that we've not seen, and governors are not willing, nobody's willing to cut down. I use the case of IBM because seemingly doing very well. But if you look at the budget people are posting about, personnel, management of the institution, the governor's office, they are still not appropriate at this time. So I'm not sympathetic to the governors because I want to see you shave yourself, cut down your hair, okay? Then we can now tell workers, cut down. That's really the problem. So the moral deficiency of the government at different levels, that they outsource loss to the people and keep adding benefit to themselves, is the problem. So they have to close this issue, and they have to move closer to Labour than backstabbing. There's no way the conflict is going to be there, and Labour does have the power to make laws, but Labour would leave this meeting feeling disappointed, and Nigerian people will probably side with them because we've not seen significant movement.
Well, a good place for us to leave it. Dr. Sam Amadi, many thanks for your time.